Big news! CityCast Boise has been nominated for the Best Podcast in Boise Weekly's Best of Boise contest. Now we just need you to make it official by voting for us. Every day we bring you sharp news breakdowns, insider event tips, and the tastiest food recommendations in town, so you never miss what makes our city amazing. And this is your chance to help us shine. Voting's open till May 23rd. It's easy and only takes a few minutes. Just click the link in the show notes. Thanks, everybody. Today on CityCast Boise, Congressman Mike Simpson is making moves on public land protection, but can a bipartisan caucus hold back big development plans? And this obscure election could shape Boise's event scene. Plus, the unveiling of a new park designed to make sure a little girl's dreams live on in a powerful way. It's Friday, May 16th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Happy Friday again, everyone. Joining me this week is political scientist Charlie Hunt, because there are some very interesting political things happening, as you all may have noticed this week and, for the past, over 100 days. But thank you so much for being here, Charlie.
Thanks, Lindsay. Happy Friday.
I wanted to just jump in with some kind of interesting news. It's national news, but it also hits pretty close to home and is something that doesn't happen very often in Idaho. And that is that one of our representatives is actually going to be a co-chair for a caucus and for a caucus focusing on public lands.
Yes.
I mean, Idaho isn't very populous. We're not super important when it comes to the realm of politics. So how did Representative Mike Simpson land a co-chair role on a new public lands caucus, Charlie?
Great question, Lindsay. So a couple things just to start out. So first, what is a caucus? So in Congress, a caucus it's not a committee. So it's not like the typical congressional committee where you take votes and pass out legislation and send it to the full chamber. A caucus is basically kind of an opt-in working group of sorts where members of Congress that have similar interests, right? Usually they're from similar parts of the country or types of districts, can sort of form a working group and sort of going on the principle that if we're all doing this together, then we have a lot more power than if it's just one of us. And so in this case, this is a bipartisan caucus. So there are both Democrats and Republicans on this caucus. And it's based on this issue of protecting public lands. Now, I think it's fair to say that even some of the Democrats and Republicans on this committee probably have slightly different ideas of what that means. But it was a show of bipartisan support for public lands. And Rep. Simpson is vice chairing this in part because, as we know, Lindsay, Idaho has a lot of public lands. Like Idaho, yes, it's a very small state, but in terms of the percentage of our state that is sort of public federal land, we're pretty high on the list. And so it's interesting, but I actually think not that surprising that Simpson, especially given his background advocating for public lands, and in some cases, as we'll talk about, kind of going against Republican Party orthodoxy on this issue, not that surprising that he's a big part of this caucus.
Well, in protests around the state for public lands and in movements around the state for public lands, Representative Mike Simpson has been quite a bit more vocal than any of our other representatives or legislators. And then didn't he also co-sponsor the Public Lands and Public Hands Act in April?
That's right. So he co-sponsored this bill along with a lot of the folks who are on this new caucus. And it'll be interesting to see sort of how this bill plays out, especially given what's going on with sort of the budget talks right now. But yeah, this is a bill that basically would prevent the sale or transfer of most of the public lands that are managed by either the U.S. Interior Department or the U.S. Forest Service. And so it would basically require congressional approval for any public land sales that sort of fall under that bill's exceptions. And this was, a bill that, yes, it was co-sponsored by Simpson and a number of these folks in this caucus, and it was hailed by environmental groups, including the Conservation Voters of Idaho. Basically, Ryan McGoldrick, the program director, basically said, "We're thankful that Representative Simpson has listened to his constituents. We know he cares about public lands." And it's interesting seeing this kind of cross-partisan pollination happening on this issue. And this is one where Simpson has been involved in this issue for a really long time. He's been in Congress a lot longer than his counterpart in the first district, Russ Fulcher, and I think has some differing opinions from his colleague on this particular issue. And especially as he's getting later in his career, maybe willing to stake a little bit more of his reputation on the issue.
And this really has become a topic that has become a flashpoint in national politics. I mean, President Trump has called for the selling of public lands, and both sides have then weighed in on what that would mean. Usually people on the left are maybe not so aligned with President Trump saying that they're selling our public lands to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy, with then the Republican side saying, well, we need more housing. This could be a great way to develop and have more housing. But do you see with this bipartisan caucus that potentially the American people aren't really on board, and this might be an issue where their representatives are also not sold?
Yeah, I think potentially it is. I mean, I think the sale of public lands, and especially when you put it in the context of housing, which it is a problem. We do have a housing crisis in this country. But I think you have a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle saying okay, well, the amount of public lands you would need to sell off in order to solve this housing crisis is so big that it's not worth the exchange of losing all of these public lands or privatizing them or something like that. And it is one where I think doesn't necessarily map neatly onto partisanship. And I think we're seeing this come out, especially in recent days. Over the past couple weeks, the House Republicans approved an amendment to, I can't believe I'm going to say it, what we're calling the Big Beautiful Bill that's being debated in Congress.
Charlie, how is this life?
I don't know. But you know what? Here we are, Lindsay. It's the Big Beautiful Bill, the BBB. Anyway, this amendment would make new authorizations for the sale of federal lands. The House Natural Resources Committee approved this amendment on a party line vote. And interestingly, Russ Fulcher, who I just mentioned in the first district, voted in favor of this. And then Simpson was on the record with the Idaho Press saying that he had a problem with that he had major concerns, thought that this might set a precedent that would bother him, and that this could kind of be a slippery slope towards state ownership of federal lands, which other Idaho politicians like Raul Labrador have advocated for. But Simpson and these conservation groups both say that this is basically a slippery slope to privatization, that this isn't something that the state could ever afford, and that this is something that is big enough that the federal government has to handle it. And that's something that Simpson has been consistent on for a pretty long time.
I'm really curious. One of the reasons I really enjoy talking with you about this is kind of picking your political science brain. Do you think land conservation is big enough of an issue for Republicans to not support it or not vote for it? Is this the issue where they're going to break with Trump?
Probably not a lot of Republicans. And this is where I think sort of the type of district you come from actually really does matter. For the most part, and I understand why this happens, we sort of think of all Republicans as interchangeable or all Democrats as interchangeable, but they come from very different types of areas. So for example, Congressional District 1, where Fulcher serves, right, supported Trump by 45 points in 2024. So it's one of the 20 most Trump-supporting districts in the country. District 2, which is Simpson's district, which includes most of Boise and then southern and eastern Idaho, also supported Trump, of course, but only by about 26 points. Obviously, this is still a lot, right? It's not like it was close. But that does make it a different kind of district. And I think Simpson's mode of representation reflects that. And that includes his background having fought for these issues. And especially as, he's getting older and he's highly tenured in Congress and is, fairly well respected. folks like him might decide as they're later in their career, this is something I've sort of staked my professional life on, and so maybe that's something I'm going to fight for. The average Republican in Congress, probably not. But someone like Simpson, whose background is really tied up in in environmental issues, sometimes crossing the aisle, he's pushed back on other things recently. He's been, quoted for having a big problem with the idea of impoundment, basically what the federal government what the Trump administration has been doing with federal funds, saying that in some cases that it was illegal and that would be a challenge. And so finding little ways to push back in ways that I think are really interesting.
We have a lot of these public lands, a lot of these areas that we enjoy, these outdoor and wilderness areas, because of progressive conservationists at, the turn of the 20th century, late 19th century. And when I say that, I know how we use those words now. People are picturing, one type of political party. But I mean, like Teddy Roosevelt was a Republican and was in favor of public spaces and these public lands. And so do you think today we have the political will, not just politicians, but as a country or even as a state, to push to keep these lands protected and not sell them off and not privatize them? Do we have the same, strength for that our ancestors did?
Politically speaking, I'm not sure. I think partisan polarization between the two parties has scrambled this a little bit. But I do also know, I moved here to Idaho 6 years ago and have met all kinds of people, some progressives, some conservatives. We do live in Idaho after all. But what I tend to hear from people of all stripes, regardless of their political affiliation, is that one of the things they really love about Idaho, like always at the top of the list, is the wilderness, nature, the open space, the sawtooths, like all of this stuff that is something that I think a lot of people take for granted. But this is actually a critical service that's been provided by the federal government for such a long time that people take it for granted. And if it starts going away, or if it starts degrading, or if it starts costing money, then I think that's something that people are going to notice. And I do think that representatives like Simpson understand that and are probably responding in kind.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, those goals often fade. That may have happened to you. It has definitely happened to me. And that's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now Prolon is upping their game with the new next-gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Next-Gen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top U.S. medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. I've been doing the 5-day program, and I feel so much better. I really enjoy the tasty energy bars, the snacks and soups, and the fact that I can enjoy meals, even though the calorie count is super low. The flavors and textures are excellent. An olive oil snack here, broccoli and quinoa soup there, hibiscus tea, a yummy nut bar. It's got the benefits of a 5-day fast, but doesn't have the challenge of doing it with pure liquids. It's a system reset. And also, I know this sounds funny, but it's not. The packaging and directions are fantastic, clear, and well organized and thoughtful. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering CityCast listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/city. That's PROLONLIFE.com/city to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/city. This episode of CityCast is sponsored by Babbel. Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, maybe even a whole new life. So why not start the journey today with Babbel? You can start speaking a new language with confidence thanks to Babbel's conversation-based technique. It quickly teaches you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. There are more than a dozen languages available for you to learn at your own pace, with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I'm David Plotz, CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel and brushing up a teeny bit on my French. But there's also Turkish, Swedish, Dutch, German, many more languages. Babbel's tips and tools for learning a new language are approachable and accessible. It's like having a private tutor in your pocket. I particularly love Babbel's guided conversations, which let me practice real-world conversations. What to say at the doctor's office, how to leave a party, using speech recognition to make sure I'm getting the pronunciation right. Babbel's mobile app and website have real-time feedback, progress trackers, and clear visualizations. They're helping me improve my Spanish in only 10 minutes a day. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Okay, Charlie, I'm really excited to talk with you about our next topic. I don't think I've ever been asked more about an election question, like what's going on, who should I look at, who should I vote for, what is this issue even about, than the GBAD elections in Boise, the Greater Boise Auditorium District Board elections. I have had, I'm not joking, probably 30 messages about this. Have people talked to you at all about this election or what even the GBAD is?
A little bit. I mean, Lindsay, I'm a political scientist and I had to learn about this a little bit myself. Like, this is not something that comes across a lot of people's radars on an everyday basis.
I have to admit as well, I really just thought they ran like the Boise Center. And that's it. I had, until I, read the Boise Dev article about it, I really just thought it was the board for the Boise Center, which is not a big deal, but they do quite a bit more. Like they, have to promote economic activity and growth through tourism and events. And they also focus on different facilities, not just the Boise Center, but also the Idaho Central Aquatic Center. And so it is kind of a more broad scope than just, the board that takes care of the Boise Center. And so I do think, learning more about this is kind of critical to Boise and to our future as we're growing as a city, who we want to be and how we want to fund events and things that we enjoy as well.
I mean, certainly I associated them with the Boise Center, and that is a big part of their job. That was sort of the main original project. They oversaw the expansion of the center that took place in the last decade that finished up in 2017. But, they, in reading about them, they described their goal basically as promoting tourism and economic development, and specifically to, quote, develop spaces for community engagement that facilitate the greatest positive benefit to our community. So this is a place like the Boise Center where we're taking in a lot of, outside folks who are, engaging in conferences or tournaments or something like that, people from out of town a lot of the times. But they also were major participants in the Idaho Central Aquatic Center, originally kicked in $5 million for that and then doubled that contribution to $10 million when costs ran a little high. And so the district, right, the GBAD, I do love this acronym. It's better than Big Beautiful Bill. The district owns the land and the building at the aquatic center. And so, they are heavily involved in that. And so it's interesting to sort of have this specific board that's tasked with what I think is a pretty important task, which is sort of creating community spaces. Obviously, we have like Boise Parks and Rec and all of these other groups, but it's really interesting to have a district, a board dedicated just to this.
So in this election, there are 2 seats up for grabs. And initially there were 4 people filed, but it seems like only 3 people are actually campaigning at this point. There's Amy Taylor, Sophie Sestro, and Jim Walker. And this is a nonpartisan election, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So there are 2 seats up for grabs. 4 candidates originally filed to run, and then only 3 have decided to continue campaigning. So 2 of these candidates who get the most votes are going to be elected to the board, and that's right. It's nonpartisan. And they had a kind of a candidate forum talking about some of these different things, and I didn't get the sense, Lindsay, that this was like a presidential debate where there was like lots of backbiting and all of this stuff. If you're running for a board like this, maybe you're not trying to be a hyper partisan, but there were a couple of differences in terms of their approaches that they did talk about.
Absolutely. And Jim Walker currently is serving on the GBAD board and has for 2 terms. So he's the only one of the 3 candidates that has experience on the board. And Sestro has always lived in Boise, is the founder of Lunation Communication. According to Boise Dev, spent many years working in destination marketing and tourism and communication, promoting the Treasure Valley. And then Tyler is the general manager of Abridge Hospitality, which oversees hotels in Boise. So just a little bit of their background. And I believe she moved from Washington to Boise in 2015. So she's lived here a decade.
Right. And so, in terms of thinking about how a voter would approach this election, like any election, I think a voter might look at things like what you just said, like background experience, whether they are sort of well suited to the position in terms of tourism and things like that. And then sort of looking at what they are interested in doing with the GBAD, like there was the Boise Center, the Aquatic Center, and now it seems like they're sort of looking forward and thinking about, okay, what is our next big project that we want to tackle? It sounds like they've got, somewhere between 20 and 50 million in available funds on hand. And so this is something where they can make a big impact. And so the question is sort of, do you go more in the direction of building out more meeting space like the Boise Center, or trying to sort of take some of the heat off of the Boise Center? It sounds like it's continually really booked, which is great. But if we want to accommodate more people, then maybe we need other spaces. Or do you sort of go in the direction, and this was one thing that Walker was saying, maybe we need to go towards more different kinds of sports complexes so that we can host tournaments and these kinds of sort of athletic conferences in the future.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he mentioned, if we hosted more sporting events, that would help with weekend bookings, which he mentioned with hotels and different things seems to suffer somewhat. So that was an interesting angle to look at things. I also like to look to see if I can find any associations of, are other people I'm interested in voting for also support it? People seem to run in PACs and endorsements and things like that. Babe Vogt and Jonathan Baldoff, who is running for the Ada County Free Library District Board as a candidate who opposes book censorship or book bans, they posted in support of Sophie Sestro just yesterday. And then I reached out to the Idaho 97, and they are supporting Sophie Sestro and Jim Walker. So they have made posts about that if you want more information. But I did see that those groups and those people are kind of campaigning together and working together during this election season.
Yeah, that's always interesting information to have. And I think sort of looking forward, it's sort of trying to answer questions around like these kinds of projects are geared towards outsiders, folks coming in from out of town. And so the question for boards like this is, what can we do to make Boise a welcoming place for people who maybe haven't been here before? And I think it's also practically, how do we make out-of-towners want to spend a lot of money here and juice the local economy and help out people and businesses who are here all the time? And so looking at these different candidates is, it's a small election, but it's an important election. So hopefully people in the district get out there and vote.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks, It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
All right, let's jump into pick of the week. And Charlie, I hope you don't mind, but I'm actually going to go first this week. I'm really excited about my pick of the week.
Go for it.
And that is that Eva's Dream Ninja Course at Discovery Park in Meridian is opening this Sunday, May 18th. They're having a ribbon cutting at 3 p.m. And I just want to tell you a little bit about this because it's like a really beautiful story, actually. Eva Plimmer was a little girl that lived in Meridian, and she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, an inoperable brain tumor. And she also loved Ninja Warrior, I believe American Ninja Warrior, probably all the Ninja Warriors. And so she really wanted a ninja course in Meridian. And I mean, we don't have one. So her family raised $200,000, and then the Meridian City Council approved $145,000 in additional funding to create the Eva's Dream Ninja Course at Discovery Park. And unfortunately, she did pass away just a few days after the City Council approved the funding. But this is a wonderful chance to celebrate the community, to celebrate Eva's dream and celebrate her life. And so they're having a ribbon cutting on Sunday, May 18th at Discovery Park. And there's going to be food trucks, family-friendly activities, and it's just a really beautiful way. I feel like Meridian is honoring this girl and creating a legacy for her and her family.
That's really, really sweet. It is like, it's a really beautiful way to sort of, honor that legacy, and give kids and families the opportunity to do what Eva, was not able to do. And so, for folks who are thinking of checking this out, Lindsay, like, I am not like an aficionado of American Ninja Warrior. I've seen it like on TV in doctors' offices before, but I have not watched it myself. Like, what can I expect from something like this? Like, what does this actually entail?
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. I'm waiting till Sunday, but I'm going to assume there's like climbing wall things, or maybe where you got to like run up and jump and grab it, all those really intense things that I like watching from my couch. But I'm glad that we have this course, and Eva said that she wanted kids to find joy in believing in themselves and overcoming obstacles. So
it sounds like I would have to get into better shape before I did this, but I have a couple of young nephews who I think would be really into this. So maybe I'll leave it to them to honor Eva. That sounds like a ton of fun. All right, so I'll go to mine next, Lindsay. My pick of the week is really, for me, like a pick of the last few years, because it's something I've been enjoying for a while, but I feel like not a lot of people know about. It's called the Limberlost Review, and it's a literary journal, which sounds really fancy, but really what it just is they release it yearly. It's put out by Rick and Rosemary Ardinger from Boise, and they are, publishers. They run their own press. They make all of these are handmade, like hand-bound, and it is a literary journal that has poetry, prose, essays, all from writers in the Mountain West, and all touching on topics that are unique to the Mountain West and the Intermountain West. It's been published sporadically for 30 years. Like it was being published a lot in the 70s and 80s, but they brought it back in 2019 and have produced yearly reviews since then. And it's something I came across actually as I was preparing to move out here from the East Coast, because I was like, I've never been to Idaho. I don't know anything about the West. I don't know anything about the culture, and I want to seem like I belong in some way. And so I don't even remember how I came across the 2019 edition, but I got it and I read it, and it was a really great collection of poetry, which I love, and prose and short stories and short essays, and both local and non-local artists and writers provide their take on the Mountain West. Really helped me back then to get to know a little bit about the culture of the area. And it's just something they they just put out the 2025 version. And so I'm really excited to get my hands on that.
How can you get it? Do you need to order it from them, or is it maybe at like Rediscovered Books? Can I pick it up somewhere?
I generally just order it straight from them, but I have seen different versions of it at Rediscovered. So depending on what their sort of supply is there, I definitely saw the 2024 version of there a few months ago. So readers can probably check it out there.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much for coming on the show and once again sharing all of your expertise with us as we wade through this really interesting political landscape. And I hope you have a great weekend.
You too, Lindsay. Thanks for having me back.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, Francisco Kilgore, Selena C.A. Reynolds, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter with the help of Adrian Gonzalez this week, and our theme music is by Up Is the Down Is the, with additional music from All the Kimonos, Hip Color, and Abbas Premji. We'll be back on Monday with another great local story. Catch you then.